way up high. There's land that I heard of once in a lullaby. Somewhere over the rainbow, bluebird, what is it? Skies are blue. And the dreams that you dare to dream really do come true. One day I'll wish upon a star, wake up where the stars are far behind me, where troubles melt like lemon drops high above the chimney tops. That's where you'll find me, somewhere over the rainbow. Bluebirds fly, birds fly over the rainbow. Why can't I?
If funny little bluebirds fly
Above the rainbow, why, oh, why can't I? Yeah, right.
Rejoicing.
Right.
I can.
You know, so it's the universal intuition that, you know, whether we talk about the kingdom of heaven or nirvana or somewhere over the rainbow, right? Above the clouds, above all this tumult, above all this chaos, or, you know, whatever metaphor, below the waves, there's this place of clarity, this place of openness where the skies are blue. And we've known it since childhood. We heard of it once in a lullaby. It's like it comes with the mother's milk. Right? And we know that's the solution to our problems. That's the place where troubles melt like lemon drops. And you've experienced that when we close our eyes, we meditate, somehow everything melts. And then you come back, oh yeah, right, I'm in this body. And so that's what all the techniques, what all the methods are about. It's just, okay, getting going over the rainbow. So let's do something else. Well, since we have this wonderful group of singers here.
Speaking for yourself.
Here's something everyone can do. Here's a song you may have heard. Oh, say, can you see? We don't have to do even that much. Oh, say. Just, oh, say. Okay, now do it on ah. Ah. And now smooth it out so it's just one smoosh. Ah. It's called a glissando in music. Ah. You hang out in that lower note. Again, take a deep breath. Ah. Now that's called a descending fifth. So it's like going from a G to a C or from an E to an A. Don't worry about that if it's meaningless. You just remember, oh, say, ah, or Flintstones. Meet me, the Flintstones. Ah. It's everywhere. It's everywhere in music. It's the only interval that's in every scale, major, minor, Lydian, Dorian, every form of music, Eastern, Western, because it's a very fundamental relationship. Because if you start at the lower note, let's say it's C, 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 D, E, F, G, That's G is as far away as you can get from the C before you start getting closer to the next C in the next octave. So in other words, that's the point of maximum tension. Maximum tension between two sound vibrations. So when we start off at that point of maximum tension, maximum suspension, and then we drop out of it, it's like total tension, total suspension, and then resolution. Tension, resolution. Question, answer. Problem, solved. And here's one you may have heard in church. I'm not sure if they do it in this church, but in some churches, amen. Right? That's the thing. Here you do it. I love the way you do it here in English. So it is. So it is. Okay? But the amen, so you could actually do that if you felt like it. So it is. So you're dropping into that resolution in terms of the sound vibration as well as in terms of the meaning. So, how do we use this? Well, you can use it any time. You can use it, this guy back here we were talking about, okay, meditation is when you're sitting, but it can also be when you're hiking the trail. It can be when you're driving on the 405. When you're feeling caught up in stuff, or just when you're feeling fine. And you want, and as a way of melting back over the rainbow. Right? So ready? Let's take a deep breath all together. And when you do the upper note, have the idea that you're like a drop up here. It's drop suspended in space. That's unstable, an unstable, tense situation. And then as you swoop down into the lower note, it's like that drop just dropping down into this warm, universal ocean of going on and on. So just melting, everything melting into that. So again, deep breath. And when you do this at home, by the way, fool around, play with it, and find what is the lowest note for you to land on for that second note that you can still sing at full volume. And that's the best place for you to sing it. That helps strengthen your voice, by the way. Keeps your voice from getting old and from getting tired. And also brings out the low overtones of your voice, especially important for women in women in the workplace. You know, who tend to get sometimes drowned out by those proud lion-like male voices. This brings out your lion-like overtones. Even the pitch is the same. Your pitch may still be higher, but the low overtones are what give it the powerful sound. Yes?
I get so frustrated when I'm calling about our bills or this or whatever. From now on, I'm gonna start thinking of you, and I'm gonna start using my voice. Honest, put you on hold. I can be 45 minutes for one call because from now on, I'm not going to get upset. I'm just going to start singing.
Yeah, there you go. I love it. Okay.
Best thing today I learned.
Good. And this is why I love to throw out, it's like throwing strands of spaghetti against the wall, and hopefully at least one thing will stick for each person. Some people really get this and they love it, and this becomes like a really important practice for them. Some people maybe not so much. Some people, that breathing through the feet that we did earlier, some people just, when I was doing this yesterday in the yacht club, this one guy in the front row, it's just, his eyes lit up, and it was like he'd been waiting all his life to hear breathe through your feet. Right? So that's why in the book I've got about a couple dozen things like that, so everyone can find something that they really connect with. Let me give you the little more fleshed out version of this now, since you like it so much. And I do this every morning in the shower, where it's nice and echoey and your voice really feels strong. So, first of all, as I said, find the lowest note for you to land on that you can sing in full volume. So if you're, it might be, depending on where your voice is, or it might be, depending on. And then what you do is you go through the 5 basic vowel sounds. A, E, I, O, U. I learned this in Spanish class years ago. A, E, I, O, U. El burro sabe más que tú. Right? You're dumber than a donkey. Right. Right. Okay, so let's go through the 5 vowel sounds, and then we'll just keep our eyes closed and sit. Okay, so breathing in. And again on the second note, just melting, letting your body melt, letting everything just melt into that. And now A. And now E. And that was the hard part. Now, once again, we just rest right here. Thoughts come and go, fine. Feelings come and go, fine. Sounds and sensations come and go, fine, perfect. It all comes and goes like breezes within the space of sky. And the one thing that does not come and go is the experiencer, the space, the awareness, also known as I. So just rest as this I, this aware, open space within which all the experiences come and go. Nothing to figure out, nothing to keep track of or evaluate. Anytime you find yourself grasping at something, trying to do something, or resisting something, just relax your grip on it. Relax back into yourself. Relax back into this sky-like openness, which is awareness, which is I. That's simple. Just letting whatever comes come. Letting whatever goes go. And resting in the only thing that doesn't come and go, which is not a thing. It's the open space within which the comings and goings happen. The space where all the experiences of our life have happened. This same silence, the same I. Where else could it be? And always right here, never far away. How much distance can there be between you and yourself? Nothing to do but rest in that. Let go into that. So keep the eyes closed. And again, take a couple of minutes to bring the body back to a more active state. And when you feel ready, you just slowly ease the eyes open. And you'll notice that I emphasize taking a couple of minutes to come out all the time. And that's because when the mind settles down, the body settles down along with it. Settles down into what the scientists call a wakeful hypometabolic state, which means that even though we're awake, sometimes we fall asleep in meditation. And that's fine, by the way. Never fight sleep in meditation. Sleep in meditation is a blessing. I love it. But no, usually we're awake, yet the body is settling down into a very restful state similar to sleep. Metabolism settles down, heart rate settles down, brainwave activity changes. But because it sneaks up on us in such a natural, gradual way, we often don't realize how deeply settled we are. You may experience this sometimes. You're sitting there meditating, maybe think, this is such a waste of time. Nothing's happening. And then the cat jumps in your lap or the phone rings and you realize, oh man, I don't want to deal with that. Right?
Yeah.
Right? So since we don't know how deeply the body is settled, we always want to take time to come out great. If we come out too quickly, the body could feel jarred. You could actually get a headache or feel spaced out or irritable or something like that. So you always want to ease out. It's like waking up in the morning. The moment you wake up, you don't, put your feet on the floor and start doing stuff. You take a couple of minutes. Okay? Any questions about any of this? So that, yeah.
I
question.
don't have a question, but I'm so grateful. When my mind is quiet, I see purple.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just so beautiful because I really know it's quiet there.
Yeah, great.
Lovely.
That's great. And sometime you might experience that your mind is completely quiet and you don't see purple.
Yeah.
And sometimes you might experience most profoundly that even if your mind is noisy, that's the surface, but awareness is always not just quiet, but silent. Silence.
Thank you.
Silence. Yeah, and that's the profound thing. What was I going to say? Yes, so meditation is essentially not doing anything. I don't like to say just do nothing because that sounds too formless. So, as I said before, the 3 words to remember: rest as awareness. Notice, okay, I'm aware of stuff. I'm awareness. I'm the I. I'm the sky. The rest of the stuff is the cloud. This doesn't mean we're trying to visualize the sky. That's just another thought, right? But that we are, it's a metaphor. We're like the sky. We're like the ocean. We're like the screen. We're like the mirror. Everything else comes and goes within this I. And just rest as awareness. 3 words, right? Or, if you need a slightly more elaborate version, relax your grip, right? For when you feel caught up in something, whatever it is, doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a mood or a worry or an effort or whatever, relax your grip and rest as awareness. Okay? But that's so simple that usually when you're practicing at home and there isn't someone there guiding you, you want some kind of on-ramp into that simplicity. So the on-ramp you could use singing descending fifths, just or all the vowels, whatever floats your boat. Or you could do some, if you're familiar with doing some breathing, some yogic breathing, or just following the breath very deeply in, very deeply out, or breathing through your feet as we did before, or gazing at something, gazing at your hands or a spot on the floor, gazing at the surface of the beautiful ocean here, anything. Just because we've been running around doing 1,000 things, so take some simple one thing and then nothing. Meditation, on-ramp. And then a lot of these things also we can use as standalones, right? So that when you're in traffic or when you're, on the phone stuck on hold with customer service, okay, great. It's you can knock your head against the bars of your cage.
Yes.
We all know how to do that. We've all had plenty of practice doing that, and we know what happens, which is we dent our head. Or we can go, okay, it's another opportunity, another wonderful opportunity to just be. I'm not going to get to the customer, to the right person there at the other end, or the light's not going to turn green when I want it to turn green, because weirdly enough, the universe is not being run to fulfill all my egoic desires. There's a little bigger picture going on. So all these times when my immediate desire is not being fulfilled, fine, get off the hamster wheel of desire and just be. Whatever. Yeah, what a relief. Now, I want to introduce another thing, which is a real kind of shortcut to this stuff that a lot of people have found very helpful. I have a chapter about this in the book. And there's a story behind this one. The story is, when I was living in New Jersey, I was in my 30s, and for several years, I studied a beautiful Japanese martial art called Aikido. I finally found something slightly athletic that I could do kind of well. Not really well, but kind of well. Because in Aikido, you don't fight. What happens when the person comes rushing in, you take their energy and you say, oh, you want to rush this way? Okay, there you go. And you throw them, or you help, or you roll them, or something like that. So one day I was studying for my next promotion, my next test for my next promotion. And the thing I had to practice was a thing where 3 people rush in to attack me and try to wrestle me to the ground. And what I'm supposed to do is each one comes in, I use his energy and send him flying or send him rolling. But what happened was, as the first guy came in, I would wind up grappling with him. And then the next guy would come in and knock me over, and then the third guy would just get on top of all of us. And this just, right? So I'm going through this, I'm getting completely frustrated, and then just as the guy's about to come rushing in again, I hear the voice of the teacher, the sensei from across the dojo, from across the room, and he's shouting at me, Dean, relax at the moment of contact. Right? And first I was completely puzzled. What is it? Because I was so busy, I was so caught up in tensing up that I didn't realize I was tensing up. Right? You hear that? I was so caught up in tensing up, I didn't realize I was caught up in tensing up. So the next time, as the guy rushed in, instead of, I went, and wow, he goes sailing across the room. It's like a miracle. But then the next guy comes in and again, and Rick, my teacher, Dean, relax at the moment of contact. Oh yeah, and I go rolling him. And then again, and it was hilarious. It was like turning a switch on and off. Every time I tensed up, I couldn't do it. Every time I relaxed at the moment of contact, which of course is exactly the moment that you tend to tense up, everything became easy and fluid. Okay, now, probably most people here are never going to practice Aikido, and I don't anymore, but the real Aikido is called life. Okay, and all the stuff that comes at you, those are the attackers. So you're putting out your garbage cans, and there's your crazy neighbor again complaining about the way you line up the garbage cans. Relax at the moment of contact. Right? Right? Here's the whatever. Here's your teaching school, and the administrator comes in with something about some story from some irate parent who's completely confused about what's going on in your class, and you're relax at the moment of contact. It doesn't mean you become apathetic. It doesn't mean you become passive. It doesn't mean that people walk over you. But I think you can feel intuitively the power of this, right? When you don't get caught up in tensing the moment of contact, you become more effective, not less. You're able to send stuff sailing across the room. So simple. Relax at the moment of contact. Okay? Okay. And these are, I love reducing this stuff to simple words, simple slogans you can remember, right? Rest is awareness. Relax at the moment of contact. Here's one more. Would it help? How many of you have seen this movie, Bridge of Spies? Right? A few years ago, a Steven Spielberg film about Rudolf Abel, the Soviet spy, true story. He was caught in New York City in the mid-50s spying for the Soviet Union, put on trial, and espionage, capital crime. Fortunately, his lawyer is Tom Hanks. So, you know, how bad can things be? And in their first jailhouse meeting, Tom Hanks tells him, you know, you're very inconvenient. The Americans and the Russians both want to see you go to the electric chair. And Rudolf Abel, played by the brilliant Mark Rylance, who got an Oscar for this, actually. He says, you know, everyone wants to send you to the electric chair. And he thinks about it for a second. He says, all right. And Tom Hanks says, you don't seem worried. And he goes, would it help? Okay?
Beautiful.
Isn't that beautiful? So you can hear that. You can hear that. Would it help? Would it help? You know?
Oh, wow.
Think of, right now, just do a quick review, like think of your entire life, from birth to this moment. Think, what if everything had happened the same? What if you had done everything exactly the same, except without the worry? Would it be worse?
No.
No. Would it be better? Yeah. 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 Would it help? No, it doesn't help. It doesn't help. Right? Shantideva, great 6th century Buddhist philosopher, put it in slightly more poetic language. He said, if there's a solution to the problem, what's the point of worrying? If there's no solution to the problem, what's the point of worrying? Oh, yeah, you get it. Yeah, yeah. Isn't that great? That would make a great tattoo. Inside your eyelids. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So that's another slogan that, you know, some of this stuff, if you really hear it, it can be life-changing. It's a shift of view, shift of view. Good. What else? What questions do you have about any of this stuff? Yes?
So I wasn't here for the meditation. You mentioned about 6 times about breathing through your feet.
Uh-huh.
Could we do that a little bit right now?
Yeah. Notice the soles of your feet. Okay? Yeah, you don't have to sit. Just the way you're sitting is fine. Nothing special. Okay? You notice the soles of your feet. Now, as you're breathing that in naturally, breathe in through the soles of your feet. You don't have to breathe deep or breathe shallow, whatever. And then as you breathe out, breathing out through the soles of your feet. Breathing in through the soles of your feet. Breathing out through the soles of your feet. That's it. You notice a little?
Soothing.
A little something there? And some people, that just their eyes light up and just, and so that's something you can do anytime. You do that at the red light, do that. You're standing in line at the pharmacy and for your, prescription to be filled. You're the first one in line. There's one person ahead of you at the counter, and that person always takes half an hour. Right? And you can be like, and they've got how dare they have a problem that takes, everyone else's problems. You notice how unreal they are, but your problems are real. By the way, that's one of the tricks the Tibetan Buddhists teach, is what if you just flip that around? Regard everyone else's problems as real and yours as unreal. That's a little view thing that can be very eye-opening.
And yours is what?
That you regard your problems as unreal and everyone else's problems as real. We usually do the opposite. So again, we're throwing pieces of spaghetti against the wall. See which ones stick for you. And sometimes you only find out by taking the stuff into life, giving it, take it for a test drive. For instance, this fellow in the back here, he and I were talking during the break. He was telling me that, where he really gets the juice is on the long hikes, and that's where he's had these experiences of like opening to boundlessness, which is great, which is wonderful. And if you get it playing golf, you get it doing your pottery, if you get it when you're, helping out in the soup kitchen, wherever it is, that's great. But you might want to consider the inherent danger of if you only feel that you've been able to access it in the context of some one activity. Because what happens then if you're deprived of that activity? You know, what happens if you sprain, something happens to your, God forbid, to your ankle or your knee, you can't do those long hikes anymore. That would be tragic. That would be tragic. Yeah.
But I never lost it. I have it right this very minute.
Well, God bless. That's great. Well, that's great. Then you're done. Stick a fork in it. That's great. That's great. Yeah. I mean, that's the point. The point of all these practices is to not have to practice. These are all provisional. None of them are ends in themselves. And especially, by the way, people get confused about these on-ramp activities. And the whole life becomes about doing breathing or doing yoga asanas, yoga postures. None of those are ends in themselves. Those are all, you know, they're all on-ramps. Thank God we have the on-ramps, but don't spend your life on the on-ramp.
Yeah.
We use the on-ramp, the point of it is get on it and then get off it as soon as possible. Get into the express lane, the diamond lane, the fast track lane of just being. That's the whole point of all this. The Buddha said it very beautifully. He said, all the practices, all the teachings are like a raft to get you to the far side of the raging river, to the, you know, the far shore of Nirvana, which of course is really this shore, the near shore. And he said, but you know, once you get there, once you've completed that journey, you're so grateful to the raft. Of course, that makes sense to be grateful to the raft, but it would be foolish to carry it around on your back. Right? It served its purpose. And that can be confusing to people. You know, you may have some practice that you really love, and I love singing this particular mantra or hymn or something, and then, this is the one where I get the juice, and then, so you keep doing it, and then after a while it doesn't do it anymore, and then you feel kind of, you know, guilty or something, like, now you know what I'm talking about? Yep.
Yes.
We've all been there, yeah. And then you feel, and it's kind of tragic and heartbreaking. And so it's really good to have this perspective, I think, that all the methods are all provisional. They're all, and especially if some one particular thing really does it for you, and then you go around and tell all your friends, well, they got to do that, and then it's really embarrassing. You know.
Yeah.
And they don't like you.
Well, that too. One time, I was getting ready for a writing project. This was back in about 1991 or so. And for this writing project, I was interviewing people about their teachers and their mentors. And I was going to interview Ram Dass, who some of you know. And so I went to get this book that he had compiled about his guru, Neem Karoli Baba, or Maharaji. Some of you are familiar with him. Very great sage. And this book is called Miracle of Love, and it's all the stories and anecdotes of Neem Karoli Baba interacting with his students. And I was in a bookstore in this one bookstore, and I found the book, and I start reading it, and I'm standing there in the aisle, and I'm suddenly through the medium of these stories in this book. It's like I'm getting the presence of Neem Karoli Baba. Now, he died, so-called, dropped the body, as they say in India. He passed on in 1973, I think. But I'm getting his darshan, you know, a master doesn't need a body around. People are getting the darshan of Jesus, you know, right now. The Buddha. So I'm reading this, and I'm getting Neem Karoli Baba. I'm getting his presence. And again, and I'm, whoa, this is every story, every page. I'm like getting the thunderbolt of his presence. In India, they call it darshan. You know, you find some holy man or holy woman who's really got the juice, and you just stand there and you get like, you know, you get the contact high from them. And I'm going, wow, this book is amazing. I got to get copies for all my friends. So I like bought out the store. I bought all these copies, and then I'm sending them off to my friends so that they'll all have this amazing experience. You know, out of this very sincere feeling, of course, I wanted to share that, and of course, none of them got that. Not because I was more enlightened than them, but just because that happened to be the thing that I was, the window that I was, happened to be standing in the right spot to get the sunlight through that window at that moment. And a year or two later, that book did nothing for me.
Oh.
You know, that's the way this stuff works. So it's like, what are all the books pointing to? What are all the hymns singing about? It's not the hymn. It's what the hymn is singing about. You know, in Zen they say it's not the finger point, it's the moon, the finger pointing at the moon. All the teachings, all the procedures, all the hymns, all the meditations are fingers pointing at the moon. You get that moon, and then the finger has served its purpose. Other questions about it?
The meditation through your feet, did you do that during meditation? I don't remember today. I mean, you mentioned about the...
Yeah, we did that earlier, and then we did a little bit just now. But it's a simple thing. It's fine. Just anytime you feel, oh, let me just breathe through my feet for a moment. There it is. There it is. Yeah, and you can use that as an on-ramp into meditation, which we did earlier this morning, or you can do it just as a standalone thing. All this stuff is pretty much like that.
The one that Lisa and I like when we're driving around and we're stuck and we're not moving here was "You're in the Office." Whee!
Yes. Yeah.
That was our favorite one.
That was that's our favorite one.
Oh, yeah. That's a wonderful mantra.
Yeah,
We also say it when things look like they might not be a blessing.
you say what?
Whee!
Yep. Okay, so here we go. Ready? Okay, and if you got anything in your hands, you got to put it down now, because we need not just the mantra, but the mudra, the hand gesture as well. Ready?
I like that.
1, 2, 3. Whee! That's pretty good, but that was A minus. Okay, I want to see maximum exuberance. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Whee! Yeah, and let's see if we can top even that. 1, 2, 3. Whee! Now try to be depressed. Right. Yes, it's hilarious. How can you be depressed after that? Okay? Now that's what's called the facial feedback hypothesis, which goes back to Darwin. Darwin was the first one who started investigating this, that when we feel joy, we tend to smile, but also when we smile, we tend to feel joy. And when you say, and you can't say we without smiling. You can't say we without smiling. So you're activating the facial feedback hypothesis. I got a chapter about this in this book. It's called Resting Bliss Face. Right. And you can, okay. So, and this is the thing, especially if you're prone to depression, you're not going to want to do this. But if you are prone to depression, do this. You know, you get up in the morning and you're starting to fall into those dumps, or whenever it is, you're starting to fall in those dumps, go, whee! And it's the last thing you'll want to do, but do it if you're tending toward depression, tending towards sadness. You know, and yeah, Yafa and I, this is like the mantra of marriage for us. Honey, the toilet's backing up again. You know, and then you call the plumber or whatever. You know. Actually, I got an email a couple of months ago from someone in Austin. I said, "Dear Dean, wanted to let you know, last year my husband and I attended your workshop in Austin, and just last week we were driving home from the auto dealership in our new Lexus. We were on the interstate." And a highway patrol car T-boned us, pushed us into the ditch. The car rolled over. When it stopped rolling, and the dust settled, we looked at ourselves, we looked at each other, we realized we were okay, and spontaneously and simultaneously, we both said, "Whee!" It's great.
Wow.
It's great. It's great. It's great. Yes.
When I'm home and I'm in pain, what I do is start smiling.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
helps me.
Yeah. That's exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
That's the facial feedback hypothesis.
And it seems like then I can move a bit.
Yeah.
a bit.
Thich Nhat Hanh said sometimes the joy is the source of your smile. Sometimes smile is the source of your joy.
Oh.
Yeah. I once saw, what was it? It was an article I read about, I think it was Pablo Casals, the great cellist, who in his later life, his hands were all gnarled up with arthritis. But then, he would take the cello and he would take the bow and he would start to play and that would all start to open up for him. So, anything that gets that joy, gets that energy running through your body is gonna do that, and there's gonna be less pain. So, I wonder if,
Can I just share
Yes.
something really quick?
yes,
So I help people get their citizenship and their ESL learners, and they're really stressed out, and I teach them all the different techniques, how to prepare for the interview. But I do relaxation techniques, and I talk about the smile.
yeah,
The smile informs the brain, and the brain informs the body. Everything's gonna be okay, and they relax. And I do that. I do visualizations like you're holding someone you really love, all these things, and it helps them relax. And so it's just this kind of mindfulness.
yeah,
Imagine you're just holding the dog, or you're breastfeeding your child, or whatever, and then how do you feel? And they close their eyes in their body, the tension goes out of their body and stuff. And it's,
yeah. No, that's so great. That's such a service that you're providing. One of my guys that I work with in Northern State Prison, and he was my longest serving guy. He'd been there for 28 years for something he did when he was 17 years old. And he'd been up for the parole board 6 times, and each time they turned him down. What they do, they find the buttons, they press the buttons and find resistance and anger and so forth. And when I first met him, he'd already been to the parole board 6 times, and he participated in our group and did the meditation, did the practices, learned the Vajrasattva mantra. He was the first one to learn the 100-syllable Vajrasattva mantra, and and then one day they called him to the parole board, and they tried to press all his buttons. They couldn't find any buttons, and he went home. He went home. By the way, he told me, actually first he went to a halfway house, and he wrote us a letter back to the group, and he talked about how weird it was to have money in his pocket, because he hadn't had money for 28 years, and how weird it was just to feel that little bit of cash rubbing against the outside of his thigh. The things we take for granted. And then he got out, and a few months later, I was still living in New Jersey, and I was hosting a meditation group in my house. And people were coming in, and he walks in. I was not expecting him. It was fantastic. And after the meditation, we were talking, and he said, "Bless you."
Is that what he said?
And he said, "Dean, I served 28 years. So after I got out, I went to visit this friend of mine who served 29 years. And we sat in his backyard on deck chairs, and we looked at the sky. And then after a while, I said, you know what? Let's get up, walk around the corner, and get ice cream." And we got up, walked around the corner, and got ice cream. And he looked at me, he said, "Dean, people have no idea." This is why I love working with prisoners. These guys are my teachers. don't take stuff for granted.
Yeah.
Good, what else? Yes.
The 100-syllable mantra.
Yes,
You also, there was a melody. It wasn't just that you had all of these, there was a melody.
yeah.
So we
Yeah.
can do it again, so we can hear it again, or can you tell me about the melody?
I don't know anything about it except that that's the way I learned it from my teachers. If you find yourself drawn to that practice, two things. A, you might want to learn the 100-syllable, and you can do this 6-syllable version. Om Vajrasattva Hum, Om Vajrasattva Hum. And anytime anything needs purification that you feel. There was when the 9/11 attacks happened, this one Lama organized a worldwide thing, having people all over the world to do collectively 1 billion repetitions of Om Vajrasattva Hum to purify that effect. And I tell the story in the book here, actually, that in Tibetan practice, and the 100-syllable version, so if you're drawn to it, you can learn that. On my website, I've got a sound file where I sing the 100-syllable version. So you can learn it from that. And then also, and you can learn this from Buddhist websites and Buddhist books, there's a much, much more elaborate version of the visualization, where that source of bright light actually becomes the Vajrasattva, the Buddha of purification, and all this. It's just very elaborate visualization, and everything's optional. So if that continues to float your boat, you can learn all of that.
So a little bit more about that. So when you taught it to your prisoners,
Yes.
How much of it do you teach at once? Do you do 6 and then 12, or?
Oh, I don't remember. It was whatever they could
Oh,
assimilate.
okay.
Whatever they could assimilate. I think we did it over a few. I was there once a week, every Thursday night. I think we learned it over the course of maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks, something like that. And then, in between, they would practice what they learned. And some guys, like that guy who had been serving 28 years, he was forging ahead, trying to learn it all on his own because he was zealous. So one of the I'll just tell you this. One of the ways in which the mantra is used in Tibetan practice is when someone who is a spiritual practitioner, a meditator, a spiritual seeker, when they've died, according to tradition, the best thing you can do for them to sort of help them clean out their old house, so they've got a nice clean exit to wherever they're going next, is you chant the 100-syllable mantra for them. So rather than visualizing clearing out your own body, you're clearing them out. And the tradition is that when someone, in that situation, when someone dies, you do it for 49 days, 7 times 7. And you do 108 repetitions of the 100-syllable mantra. Maggie, my first wife, was a Buddhist teacher, and her specialty was the Vajrasattva mantra. And when she died, I started chanting it for her, and I did that for 49 days, and it was great to have that to do. The really interesting thing was that when she died and we were arranging her memorial, one of her students found a cassette tape. This was in like 2004. Found a cassette tape of Maggie at a retreat leading the Vajrasattva mantra and explaining how you use it for someone who's died. So at the memorial, we played that tape.
Oh, it's awesome.
And we didn't announce it. But it started with Maggie's laugh. Everyone knew who it was. And so she was explaining to us how, and leading us in doing this purification for her. It was fantastic. Yeah. It was great.
No such thing as coincidence.
Yeah, synchronicity.
So just in case anyone here ever has to die. And I'm sure it will never happen to any of us. But just in case I've guessed wrong, the great thing is that every time we meditate, among other things, we're practicing dying. Because what happens when you meditate? Everything melts away. As far as your experience is concerned, and that's all that's important. In your experience, right, the body melts away. The thoughts melt away, they become more distant. The world, the external world melts away. Right? Most of you have been doing this in some form or other, so that, excuse me, that doesn't seem like a momentous thing. And it's not a momentous thing. It's the most natural thing in the world. You said before, it's completely ordinary. What's extraordinary is thinking that you're this bag of meat. And that's tragic, because this bag of meat is doomed. And then if you think you're this thing, if you're completely identified, and now, you know, this moment is coming when the thing is breaking down, when the house is on fire, and you've never practiced going out the emergency exit, right, going out the fire exit, it could be really, you know, a panicky thing. So it's, I think, a very useful perspective to know that, oh yeah, this is how to do it. And I've actually got a chapter near the end of the book called The Valley of the Shadow, which is about dying. And note that, right, of course, this is the 23rd Psalm. Lo, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will not fear, for you are with me. Right? Notice it's not the valley of death. It's the valley of the shadow of death. Death is fine. Now, death is fine, and no one ever experiences death. Right? But it's the shadow, in other words, the mental shadow, the emotional shadow, the thinking, the imagining, all that messes us up. Right? The valley of the shadow of death. I will not fear, for you are with me. Who's you? You know, you is God, you is I. You is I. Right? For the true self, what I really am has come into my conscious cognition more and more clearly, more and more clearly. And what they say happens at the time of death. I personally can't remember. But what they say is that if you haven't come into total clarity about this before, death is the golden opportunity. It's the mega meditation. You know, because you know, when we're sitting and meditating, and okay, everything's tending to melt away, and you know, but then, oh, my arthritic hands are bothering me, or oh yeah, what am I going to cook for dinner? One really good thing to do, and we're going to finish here in 2 minutes, really, because we're almost done, is when you sit to meditate, or for that matter, anything, when you sit to meditate, when you hike on the trail, when you stand up to sing, anything, buy a one-way ticket. Assume that, no, let me put it this way, drop the assumption that you're going to open your eyes and walk away from it. Right? Just assume, oh, this is it, I'm going to die here in this meditation. This is if this sounds scary to you, then forget about it. You don't have to do it. Everything's optional. But it's not scary at all. It's quite the opposite. It's quite the opposite. Because then you're sitting there meditating, you're going, what am I going to cook for dinner? Forget about it. It doesn't matter. I'm dying here. I bought a one-way ticket. And then it's just a way to just profoundly let everything go. Profoundly let, and then at the end, just in case you happen to stand up, okay, that's gravy, that's bonus. But and then that way it becomes a more profound. You know, you want to do the fire drill before the fire, before this house is on fire. You want to, so really, you know, in Tibet. They used to, when the young novices would come and enter the monastery, 10 years old, first thing they do is they'd have you build a little coffin and you sleep in it every night.
Oh, no.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But then, see, then they got that squared away. Okay, you don't have to do that. Everything's okay. Right? So, but you do that practice, and then, and I've got some stuff in here about there's some wonderful breathing stuff that you can do that's specific for breathing, for just kind of going out the emergency exit here, out the fire exit at the time of death. So everything's fine. Living is fine. Dying is fine. It's all good. It's all God. It's, you know, temporarily we get confused and think there's a problem. But, you know, they say that to the eye, they say that an enlightened person can do anything except see life as a problem. You know? So, may all beings throughout the universe swiftly, as soon as possible, please, realize the infinitely non-problematic nature of life, the infinite okayness, which is I, which is God, which is everything everywhere. The one true happiness, the kingdom of heaven. And thus may peace spontaneously prevail everywhere. And there's traditional Sanskrit language for this prayer. If you know it, feel free to join in. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Heather. Thank you, Darren. Thank you, one and all. And keep in touch. Make sure you got one of those bookmarks which has my website on it, deanwords.com, because no one can spell Sluyter. And there's chapters from all my books there. There's my teaching schedule. I'm traveling around teaching all the time. Also, there's a page, Meditate Now, that has guided meditation audio tracks. So you can just, you know, put on your headphones or just put on your speaker and have me walking you through the meditation. And any questions that come up as you're practicing this stuff, like, oh no, but what about this thing? Please don't hesitate. Send me an email. And it's just, you know, nothing makes me happier than being able to help a person get unstuck from someplace where they think they're stuck. They're not really stuck. Help you see where the unstuckness is. Okay? So thank you.